Imagine a world where the law dictates where you can live, who you can love, and what dreams you're allowed to have, all based on the color of your skin. This wasn't a dystopian novel. This was the reality for millions in South Africa under a system known as apartheid. Today, we're going to journey back in time to understand this dark chapter of history, not just to remember the pain, but to honor the resilience of those who fought against it. The roots of apartheid, which means apartness in Afrikaans, stretch back to the colonial era, but the system was formally put into law in 1948 when the National Party came to power. Their goal was to cement white minority rule and enforce racial segregation on every level of society. The Population Registration Act of 1950 was one of the cornerstones of this system. It classified every single South African into one of 4 racial categories: white, colored, Indian, or black. This classification wasn't just a label. It was a life sentence that determined your destiny. Once you were classified, a web of laws controlled your existence. The Group Areas Act, for instance, forcibly removed non-white populations from areas designated as white only. Imagine being told the home your family has lived in for generations is no longer yours. Millions were uprooted from vibrant, multicultural neighborhoods like Sophiatown in Johannesburg and District 6 in Cape Town and relocated to desolate, underdeveloped townships on the outskirts of cities. These townships were intentionally designed to be far from jobs and resources, lacking basic services like electricity, proper sanitation, and running water. Life in the townships was a daily struggle. To even enter the white cities for work, black South Africans were required to carry a passbook or dompas at all times. Failure to produce this passbook on demand could lead to immediate arrest. This system wasn't just about control, it was about humiliation. It constantly reminded black people that they were seen as temporary visitors in the land of their birth. The Bantu Education Act created a separate and grossly inferior education system for black children. The architect of this policy, Hendrik Verwoerd, infamously stated that there was no place for black people above the level of certain forms of labor. The aim was clear: to train black South Africans for a life of servitude, denying them the knowledge and skills needed to challenge the system. This theft of potential was one of apartheid's most devastating long-term impacts. And what happened if you dared to resist? The state's response was brutal and swift. Peaceful protests were often met with extreme violence. The Sharpeville Massacre of 1960 is a chilling example. Police opened fire on a crowd of unarmed demonstrators protesting the pass laws, killing 69 people, many of whom were shot in the back as they tried to flee. This event sent shockwaves around the world and marked a turning point, leading to the banning of anti-apartheid organizations like the African National Congress, ANC, and the Pan-Africanist Congress, PAC. With peaceful avenues for change closed off, leaders like Nelson Mandela concluded that they had no choice but to turn to armed struggle. This led to the formation of Umkhonto we Sizwe, the armed wing of the ANC. The government responded with even more repressive measures. The Rivonia trial saw Mandela and other key leaders sentenced to life imprisonment on Robben Island, a place that became a symbol of both the regime's cruelty and the unbreakability of the human spirit. Inside the country, the security forces operated with impunity. Activists were detained without trial, subjected to horrific torture, and many died in custody under suspicious circumstances. The story of Steve Biko, the leader of the Black Consciousness movement, is a powerful testament to this. He was arrested, brutally beaten, and died from his injuries in police custody in 1977. His death exposed the sheer brutality of the state to the world. The Soweto uprising in 1976 was another pivotal moment. Thousands of school children took to the streets to protest a new law requiring them to be taught in Afrikaans, the language they saw as the oppressor's tongue. Police again responded with live ammunition. The image of 12-year-old Hector Peterson being carried after being shot became a global symbol of the regime's barbarity. The youth of Soweto had shown they would not be silenced, inspiring a new generation of resistance. As the internal struggle intensified, international pressure grew. The United Nations condemned apartheid, and a global movement of sanctions, boycotts, and cultural isolation began to take hold. Athletes were banned from international competitions, musicians refused to play in the country, and businesses began to divest. South Africa became a pariah state. The combination of internal resistance, a failing economy, and international isolation made the apartheid system unsustainable. In 1990, President F.W. de Klerk stunned the world by announcing the unbanning of anti-apartheid organizations and the unconditional release of Nelson Mandela after 27 years in prison. This initiated a period of intense negotiations to dismantle apartheid and create a new democratic South Africa. It was a time of great hope, but also great uncertainty and tension. Finally, on April 27, 1994, South Africa held its first-ever democratic elections where all citizens, regardless of race, could vote. Long lines of people snaked for miles, a powerful visual of a nation finally claiming its freedom. Nelson Mandela was overwhelmingly elected as the first president of a free South Africa. His presidency focused on reconciliation and building a rainbow nation, a vision of unity and forgiveness over bitterness and revenge. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission was established to allow victims to share their stories and perpetrators to confess their crimes, seeking amnesty in return for truth, a difficult but necessary step towards healing. The story of apartheid is a painful one, filled with injustice and suffering. But it is also a profound story of courage, resilience, and the ultimate triumph of the human spirit over oppression. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, the fight for justice and equality can and must prevail. Thank you so much for joining me on this important journey through history. If this story moved you, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more content that explores our shared past. See you next time.